You people need to wait your turn. This isn't the free clinic downtown where you belong. Nurse Patricia Wells snapped her fingers at the pregnant woman like summoning a dog. Her voice carried across St. Catherine's pristine maternity waiting room with practiced cruelty. Keisha Williams, 8 months pregnant and exhausted from teaching third graders all day, felt every eye in the room turn toward her. Patricia's gesture was deliberate, pointing to the plastic chairs in the corner while other patients sat in cushioned recliners. The nurse's smile never wavered as she delivered the humiliation. Professional, practiced, devastating. 17-year-old Zoe Jackson, volunteering at the reception desk, quietly angled her phone. Her TikTok live stream had been showing hospital tours. Now it captured something else entirely. Have you ever been judged so completely that people forgot you might be exactly who they need you to be? 3:47 p.m. 13 minutes until shift change. Patricia's eyes swept over Keisha's simple navy maternity dress and worn flats. The judgment was immediate and absolute. I need to see proof you can actually afford our services here. Keisha pulled out her insurance card with steady hands. Roosevelt Elementary's health plan was decent, but Patricia barely glanced at it. This doesn't look right. Patricia held the card at arm's length like it might contaminate her. I need additional income verification, pay stubs, bank statements. The other patients watched with uncomfortable fascination. A blonde woman in designer clothes whispered to her husband. An elderly man lowered his newspaper. The waiting room had become a theater, and Keisha was center stage. Ma'am, I have a 4 p.m. appointment for my prenatal checkup. Keisha's voice remained calm, teacher-trained to de-escalate tension. Dr. Martinez confirmed it yesterday. I don't care what some appointment card says. Patricia's voice rose deliberately. We serve paying patients first, real patients. Zoe's fingers trembled as she adjusted her phone angle. Her TikTok livestream counter climbed, 847 viewers and rising. Comments flooded the screen faster than she could read them. This is disgusting. Sue them. Where is this hospital? Someone record this. Patricia noticed the phone and smiled wider. She was performing now, showing the waiting room how professionals handled difficult situations. Young lady, put that phone away. This is a medical facility, not social media. But Zoe kept filming. Something about Keisha's quiet dignity, the way she kept one protective hand on her belly, made stopping impossible. Keisha reached into her purse for her wallet, and Patricia's eyes caught something that should have made her pause. The wedding ring on Keisha's finger wasn't from a department store. The 3-carat diamond caught the fluorescent light, throwing tiny rainbows across the reception desk. But Patricia saw only what she expected to see. Another welfare queen trying to game the system. I'm calling security. Patricia reached for the phone with theatrical flair. We have a situation with an uncooperative patient who won't follow protocol. The digital appointment board glowed behind her. Williams, K, 4:00 p.m. Dr. Martinez, prenatal. 12 minutes and counting. Keisha pulled out her phone and began typing. Her thumbs moved quickly across the screen. Same thing happening again at St. Catherine's. They won't see me. Can you believe this? She sent the message and slipped the phone back into her purse. Patricia was too busy enjoying her power display to notice the expensive Hermes bag, or wonder why a woman supposedly too poor for medical care carried accessories worth more than most people's monthly salary. Ma'am, you need to understand something. Patricia leaned across the reception desk, her voice dripping with condescension. This is a private medical facility. We have standards to maintain. The word standards hung in the air like a slap. Keisha felt the familiar weight of being the only black face in a white space. The stares, the assumptions, the exhausting burden of representing her entire race through her behavior. She'd felt it in college lecture halls, at parent-teacher conferences, in grocery stores. Now, in a hospital where she should have felt safe. "I understand you have standards," Keisha replied quietly. "I'm just trying to take care of my baby." That's what they all say. Patricia's laugh was sharp. Free health care, government assistance, someone else paying the bills. A young mother near the window shifted uncomfortably, pulling her toddler closer. An older black woman, entering for her own appointment, paused at the reception desk, sensing the tension. Zoe's live stream had exploded. Her follower at Justice Now ATL had begun screen recording and cross-posting. The viewer count hit 2,100. Local Atlanta users started recognizing the hospital lobby. "That's St. Catherine's on Peachtree. I've been there. They're always like this. This nurse needs to be fired. Someone get this woman help." Patricia basked in what she perceived as support from the well-dressed patients around her. She was protecting their space, their comfort, their world from intrusion. "Security will be here in just a moment." She spoke loud enough for everyone to hear. "They'll help you find more appropriate care." The clock above the reception desk ticked toward 3:55 p.m. Hospital policy was clear. Appointment slots were released after a 10-minute delay. Patricia knew this. She was counting on it. Keisha's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen and her expression softened slightly. A text from Ben. "On my way to pick you up. Don't let them upset you, baby. You and Hope are the most important things in the world." She typed back quickly. "They're calling security. I might have to leave." His response was immediate. "Stay right there. I'm making some calls." Keisha looked up to find Patricia watching her with narrowed eyes. "Personal calls can wait until after you leave. This is a medical facility." "I was texting my husband." "I'm sure you were." Patricia's tone suggested she thought otherwise. The security guard appeared at the reception desk. Tony Rodriguez had worked at St. Catherine's for 8 years, following protocols and keeping the peace. He was a good man caught in a bad situation, looking uncomfortable as Patricia pointed toward Keisha. "Tony, please escort this woman to the appropriate facility. She's confused about where she belongs." Keisha stood slowly, her hand supporting her lower back. 8 months pregnant and treated like a criminal for seeking medical care. The watching room held its collective breath. "Ma'am." Tony's voice was gentle but firm. "Maybe we can work this out. What seems to be the problem?" But Patricia was already savoring her victory. Another successful cleansing of the patient population. Another day of maintaining standards. She had no idea that in 7 minutes her entire world was about to collapse. 3:52 p.m. 8 minutes remaining until appointment forfeit. The sound of heels clicking against marble announced the arrival of charge nurse Rebecca Martinez. 15 years at St. Catherine's had taught her to read situations quickly. She saw Patricia's satisfied expression, Tony's uncomfortable posture, and the pregnant black woman standing like she was on trial. Rebecca's assessment was instant and wrong. "What seems to be the issue here?" Her voice carried the authority of management, the weight of hierarchy. Patricia straightened, energized by backup. "This patient refuses to provide proper documentation for her appointment. She's become difficult." Rebecca's eyes swept over Keisha with practiced efficiency. The worn shoes, the simple dress, the obvious exhaustion of late pregnancy. Her mind filled in blanks that weren't there, painted a picture based on assumptions rather than facts. "Ma'am, perhaps you'd be more comfortable at the county hospital where they accommodate everyone." Rebecca's voice held the false kindness of someone delivering bad news. "They have excellent programs for women in your situation." Keisha felt the familiar burn of coded language. My situation could only mean one thing in Rebecca's mind: young, black, pregnant, therefore poor, therefore unworthy. "I have insurance," Keisha said quietly. "I have an appointment. I just want to see the doctor." "Insurance fraud is a serious crime," Rebecca replied, her tone suggesting this was common knowledge that Keisha somehow lacked. "We have to be very careful about verification." Zoe's hands shook as she held her phone steady. The live stream counter showed 3,200 viewers. Comments exploded across her screen faster than humanly readable. 2 against 1 now? This is systematic racism. Where are the doctors? Someone help her. Her follower at Justice. Now ATL had gone live on Instagram simultaneously, cross-posting the feed. The hashtag #Catherine's Shame began trending in Atlanta. Within minutes, it jumped to statewide visibility. The hospital's social media mentions spiked 340% in 5 minutes. Somewhere in a corporate office, analytics software began sending automated alerts to the communications department. Tony shifted his weight from foot to foot, increasingly uncomfortable with his role. He'd seen discrimination before, subtle and not so subtle. This felt different, darker, more deliberate. "Ladies, maybe we can," he began. "Tony, please escort this woman to the exit," Rebecca interrupted. "We need to maintain the schedule for our confirmed patients." The appointment board's digital display seemed to mock them. Williams, K. 4:00 p.m. The timestamp showed 3:54 p.m. 6 minutes until the appointment would be automatically canceled per hospital policy. A woman in the waiting area stood up. Mrs. Dorothy Chen, 67, had watched the entire scene unfold with growing disgust. "Excuse me," she called out. "That young lady has been nothing but polite. What exactly is the problem?" Patricia's smile tightened. Public questioning wasn't part of her script. "Ma'am, this is a medical matter. Please return to your seat." "Medical matter?" Mrs. Chen's voice rose. "I see a pregnant woman being harassed for no reason." Other patients began to stir. The comfortable bubble of assumed superiority was developing cracks. Some shifted in their seats, looking away. Others pulled out phones, no longer content to just watch. Rebecca felt control slipping. "Everyone, please remain calm. We're handling this situation appropriately." But Keisha's phone buzzed again. She glanced down. "Don't move. I'm handling this now." Something in the message made her shoulders straighten slightly. She looked up at Rebecca with new resolve. "I'd like to speak with the hospital administrator," Keisha said clearly. Patricia laughed. "The administrator doesn't deal with insurance problems. That's what we're for." "Then I'd like to file a formal complaint." "Against whom?" Rebecca's eyebrows rose in challenge. "Against both of you. For discrimination." The word hung in the air like a bomb. Patricia's face flushed red. Rebecca's professional composure cracked. "That's a very serious accusation," Rebecca said slowly. "Do you understand the legal implications of making false claims? Do you understand the legal implications of violating the Civil Rights Act?" Keisha's voice remained steady, but something had shifted. The school teacher was becoming something else. Zoe's live stream exploded. 5,400 viewers and climbing. The comments were no longer just outrage, they were organizing. Someone needs to call the news. I'm calling Channel 2 now. Does anyone know a lawyer? This is going viral. 3:56 p.m. 4 minutes remaining. Patricia was losing her audience. The waiting room's attention had shifted from supportive to scrutinizing. She needed to regain control, to remind everyone who held the power here. "Security!" she called to Tony, her voice sharp with authority. "Remove this woman immediately. She's disturbing other patients." Tony looked around the room. Mrs. Chen was still standing, arms crossed in defiance. 3 other patients had phones out, clearly recording. A young father near the window was shaking his head in disgust. "I don't think she's the one disturbing people," Tony said quietly. Patricia's control snapped. "Are you refusing to follow orders?" "I'm refusing to assault a pregnant woman who's done nothing wrong." The words echoed through the lobby. Even Rebecca looked surprised. Keisha felt something shift inside her chest. Not just the baby moving, but something deeper. A lifetime of swallowing indignities, of taking high roads that led nowhere, of being the good example who proved her worth through silence. Her phone rang. The caller ID made her close her eyes briefly. Ben. She looked at Patricia, at Rebecca, at Tony, who'd found his conscience, at Zoe still filming with determined hands, at Mrs. Chen standing in solidarity, at the room full of people who'd witnessed her humiliation. 3:58 p.m. 2 minutes until appointment cancellation. "Answer it," Patricia commanded. "Tell whoever it is that you're leaving." Keisha's finger hovered over the green button. In her teaching career, she'd learned that sometimes the most powerful lessons came from unexpected moments. Sometimes you had to let students discover truth for themselves. She answered the phone. "Honey?" Her voice was tired but steady. "They're doing it again." "Yes, St. Catherine's." Patricia rolled her eyes theatrically for the audience. Another sob story, another excuse, another attempt to manipulate the system. "Put me on speaker, baby," came a deep male voice through the phone. "Let me handle this." Keisha hesitated. In 4 years of marriage, she'd never used Ben's position to fight her battles. She'd insisted on being treated as herself, not as an extension of his success. But she was exhausted. 8 months pregnant, treated like a criminal, surrounded by people who saw her as less than human. The baby kicked hard against her ribs, as if sensing her mother's stress. "Okay," she whispered, and touched the speaker button. The room fell silent. Even Patricia stopped her performance, curious despite herself. The voice that emerged from the small phone speaker was calm, controlled, and absolutely commanding. "This is Dr. Benjamin Washington. Put whoever's in charge on this phone immediately." Rebecca and Patricia exchanged glances. The name meant nothing to them. Patricia leaned toward the phone with a smirk. "We don't take orders from—" "I am the CEO and chairman of Metropolitan Healthcare Empire," the voice continued, cutting through her words like a scalpel. "I own this hospital and 51 others." The silence that followed was absolute, and in that silence, Patricia Wells realized she had just made the biggest mistake of her life. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. "I own this hospital and 51 others." Patricia's face drained of color so quickly that Mrs. Chen thought she might faint. The smug confidence that had carried her through 15 years of maintaining standards crumbled in real time. Rebecca's fingers flew to her computer keyboard, desperately typing Benjamin Washington Metropolitan Healthcare into the search bar. The results loaded with devastating clarity. Forbes profile, Dr. Benjamin Washington, 36, CEO and Chairman, Metropolitan Healthcare Empire. Net worth, $3.2 billion. A photograph filled her screen. A handsome black man in an expensive suit, standing in front of a wall of medical degrees. Harvard Medical School, Harvard Business School. The caption read, "From Detroit poverty to healthcare empire, the Benjamin Washington story." "Oh, God," Rebecca whispered, her professional composure disintegrating. "Oh, no. Oh, no, no, no." Tony stepped closer to Keisha, his entire demeanor shifting from reluctant enforcer to protective guardian. He recognized power when he heard it, and this voice carried the weight of absolute authority. Patricia still couldn't process what was happening. Her mind rejected the possibility that this simply dressed woman could be connected to anyone important, let alone someone who owned the hospital. "We don't take orders from your—" she began again, her racism so deeply ingrained that even impending disaster couldn't stop it. "Nurse Wells." The voice from the phone cut through her words like ice. "Patricia Marie Wells, employee ID 4471, 15 years of employment, current salary $67,000 annually." Patricia's mouth fell open. Rebecca's search had pulled up the hospital's employee directory, and Dr. Washington clearly had access to systems she'd never imagined. "How do you—" Patricia stammered. "Because I own the system that generates your paycheck." Dr. Washington's voice remained calm, but the undercurrent of controlled fury was unmistakable. "Because I personally reviewed the discrimination complaints filed against you in 2019, 2021, and 2023. Because I know exactly who you are, Nurse Wells." The livestream viewer count exploded past 8,400. Zoe's hands trembled as she held her phone steady, afraid to move and miss a second of what was unfolding. Comments flooded the screen. "Plot twist! Her husband owns the hospital. Patricia is so fired. This is better than Netflix at Justice." Now ATL had shared the stream across Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook simultaneously. Oz SD Catherine's shame was trending nationally now, climbing toward viral status. "Security, please escort my wife to the VIP executive suite immediately," Dr. Washington continued. "Tony Rodriguez, I assume you're listening?" Tony straightened like a soldier called to attention. "Yes, sir, Dr. Washington. Right away, sir." "Excellent. Patricia Wells and Rebecca Martinez, you have exactly 3 minutes to report to the administrative offices on the 7th floor. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Move." The Monopoly reference would have been funny if Patricia wasn't watching her career implode in real time. Rebecca found her voice first. "Dr. Washington, there's been a misunderstanding. We were simply following protocol." "Protocol?" The laugh that came through the phone speaker was devoid of humor. "Is it protocol to tell a black woman she belongs at the county hospital? Is it protocol to assume someone can't afford medical care based on their race? Is it protocol to call security on a pregnant woman seeking prenatal care?" Mrs. Chen nodded vigorously from her seat. Other patients murmured agreement. The court of public opinion had rendered its verdict. "We have everything on record," Dr. Washington continued. "Hospital security cameras captured every word. Ms. Jackson's live stream provided additional documentation. Multiple witnesses observed the entire incident." Zoe jumped at hearing her name. Somehow he knew about her stream. She wondered if she was in trouble, but his tone suggested otherwise. "Tony, please ensure my wife receives immediate medical attention. Get Dr. Martinez, the good Dr. Martinez, not the charge nurse who shares his name, and have him conduct a complete prenatal examination. Already on it, sir, Tony replied, gently offering Keisha his arm for support. As they walked toward the elevator, Keisha felt the weight of every eye in the room. But this time, the stairs weren't filled with judgment. They were filled with awe, vindication, and more than a little fear of what was coming next. Patricia finally found her voice.
This is impossible. She's
what, Nurse Wells? Dr. Washington's voice could have frozen lava. Please, finish that sentence. Tell everyone what my wife is, in your professional medical opinion. Patricia's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. Rebecca tried damage control. Dr. Washington, we had no way of knowing what? That she was married to me? That she deserved basic human dignity? That health care is a right, not a privilege based on appearance? The elevator doors opened with a soft ding. Tony guided Keisha inside, his protective stance making it clear that anyone who wanted to continue harassing her would have to go through him first. Dr. Washington, Keisha spoke for the first time since answering the phone. I'm okay. The baby's okay. Don't do anything you'll regret. The tenderness in his voice transformed instantly. Baby, I will never regret protecting you and Hope. Never. The elevator doors closed, carrying Keisha away from the scene of her humiliation toward the medical care she'd sought from the beginning. In the lobby, Patricia and Rebecca stood frozen like statues of their former selves. 2 minutes and 30 seconds, Dr. Washington announced through the phone's speaker. I suggest you start walking. The remaining patients watched in fascination as the two women who'd held absolute power 5 minutes ago stumbled toward the elevator like condemned prisoners walking to their execution. Mrs. Chen approached Zoe, who was still live streaming with shaking hands. Young lady, are you getting all of this? Yes, ma'am, Zoe whispered. 9,200 viewers and counting. Good. This is what justice looks like. Make sure the world sees it. Dr. Washington's voice continued from the abandoned phone on the reception desk. For everyone still in the waiting room, please accept my sincere apologies. This behavior does not represent the values of Metropolitan Healthcare Empire. It does not represent the values of St. Catherine's Medical Center. And it sure as hell doesn't represent my values. An elderly man near the magazine rack started clapping slowly. Others joined in until the entire waiting room erupted in applause. Ms. Jackson, Dr. Washington called out, somehow knowing Zoe could hear him. Thank you for documenting this incident. Real journalism is about bearing witness to truth, regardless of the platform. Zoe beamed with pride, her live stream becoming the most important reporting of her young life. Everyone else, please know that changes are coming immediately. No patient will ever be treated this way again in any of our facilities. You have my word. The phone went silent for a moment, then Dr. Washington's voice returned, quieter but no less determined. Nurse Wells, Ms. Martinez, I'm curious why you're still in my lobby instead of heading to the 7th floor. The remaining staff scattered like roaches when the lights come on. Patricia and Rebecca rushed toward the elevator, their heels clicking frantically against the marble floor. As the elevator doors closed behind them, everyone in the lobby knew they were witnessing something historic. Not just the fall of 2 discriminatory employees, but the birth of accountability in a system that had protected prejudice for too long. Zoe looked directly into her phone camera. Y'all, she whispered to her viewers, I think we just watched David take down Goliath. And David was 8 months pregnant. The live stream counter hit 12,000 viewers. And this was just the beginning. Patricia's legs felt like jelly as the elevator climbed toward the 7th floor. 15 years of employment, 15 years of pension contributions, 15 years of health insurance and paid vacation days, all evaporating with each passing floor. "This can't be happening," she muttered. "This can't be real." Rebecca stared at her phone, frantically Googling Metropolitan Healthcare Empire. The search results painted a picture of corporate dominance that made her stomach churn. Metropolitan Healthcare Empire owns 52 hospitals across 9 states. Annual revenue, $21.3 billion. Employees, 89,000. CEO Benjamin Washington started with a single $2 million loan in 2015. Built empire by acquiring failing hospitals and transforming them into profitable, community-focused medical centers. Known for aggressive anti-discrimination policies and zero-tolerance approach to patient mistreatment. The elevator dinged softly at each floor. 3rd floor. 4th floor. Each sound felt like a nail being hammered into their professional coffins. "We didn't know," Rebecca whispered, though even she didn't believe the excuse. "We shouldn't have needed to know," Patricia replied, finally understanding the magnitude of their mistake. She was a patient. That should have been enough. But it was too late for epiphanies. The elevator reached the 7th floor, and the doors opened to reveal a hallway lined with corporate portraits. Benjamin Washington's photograph dominated the wall directly across from the elevator, his eyes seeming to stare directly at them. Founder and CEO, Metropolitan Healthcare Empire, healthcare without barriers. Patricia read the motto beneath his picture and felt the full weight of irony crushing down on her shoulders. A security guard waited for them in the hallway. Not Tony, but a stern-faced woman who looked like she'd been expecting them. "Dr. Washington is waiting in conference room A," she said simply. "Follow me." As they walked down the corridor, Rebecca caught glimpses through office windows. Executive assistants were on phones, talking rapidly. Computer screens showed news feeds and social media dashboards. The story was already spreading beyond Zoe's live stream. Channel 2 News. Viral video, pregnant woman discriminated against at Atlanta hospital. Fox 5. Breaking. Hospital staff accused of racial bias in shocking social media video. Atlanta Journal. Constitution. St. Catherine's Hospital faces discrimination allegations after live-streamed incident. The security guard stopped outside a mahogany door marked Conference Room A. Through the glass wall, they could see a long table surrounded by leather chairs. At the head of the table sat a man who radiated power even in stillness. Dr. Benjamin Washington looked exactly like his photographs, but the reality of his presence was overwhelming. This wasn't just wealth or success. This was someone who'd built an empire through intelligence, determination, and an understanding of systems that people like Patricia and Rebecca had never bothered to consider. He looked up as they entered, his dark eyes measuring them with surgical precision. "Sit down," he said simply. And Patricia Wells finally understood that her world had changed forever. Dr. Benjamin Washington didn't look up from his tablet when Patricia and Rebecca entered the conference room. He was reviewing real-time data streams, social media analytics, news alerts, stock price fluctuations, and legal liability assessments. The numbers painted a clear picture of corporate crisis. TikTok views, 847,000, and climbing Twitter mentions, #ST Catherines, shame trending in 12 states. News stations, 47 pickup requests in the last hour. Metropolitan Healthcare stock, down 2.3% in after-hours trading. "Sit," he said without looking up. Patricia and Rebecca took seats at the far end of the conference table, as far from him as the room allowed. The distance felt both protective and damning. Dr. Washington finally raised his eyes. When he looked at them, they understood why he'd built a billion-dollar empire before age 40. This wasn't just intelligence. It was the kind of focused intensity that transformed vision into reality. Nurse Wells. Ms. Martinez. His voice carried the calm of someone completely in control. Before we begin, I want you to understand exactly what you've done. He touched his tablet screen, and the room's wall-mounted display came alive with data. Metropolitan Healthcare Empire operates under a zero-tolerance discrimination policy. Section 4.7 of our employee handbook states, any employee found engaging in discriminatory behavior based on race, ethnicity, economic status, or appearance will face immediate termination. Patricia's hands shook in her lap. Dr. Washington, if we had known— Known what? His interruption was surgical. Known that my wife deserved basic human dignity? Known that health care is a right, not a privilege you dispense based on prejudice? The wall display shifted to show financial projections. Let me explain what this incident will cost us. Legal settlements for healthcare discrimination average $1.2 million per case. That's if we settle quietly. Given the viral nature of this incident, we're looking at significantly higher exposure. Rebecca found her voice. Dr. Washington, we were following standard verification procedures. Standard? Dr. Washington's laugh was devoid of humor. Ms. Martinez, I have the security footage. I have the live stream. I have 12 witnesses. Would you like me to play back your standard procedures? He touched the tablet again. Audio filled the room, Rebecca's own voice, clear and damning. Perhaps you'd be more comfortable at the county hospital where they accommodate everyone. Rebecca's face crumpled. Hearing her own words played back stripped away any possibility of denial or reinterpretation. Patricia Wells, Dr. Washington continued, your performance was even more spectacular. Shall we review your greatest hits? Patricia's voice echoed through the conference room speakers. You people need to wait your turn. This isn't the free clinic downtown where you belong. The silence that followed was suffocating. 15 years of employment, Nurse Wells. 15 years of complaints that were minimized, overlooked, or buried in bureaucracy. Do you know why? Patricia couldn't speak. Because people like you were protected by people like Ms. Martinez, who were protected by administrators who preferred convenience over justice. That protection ends today. Dr. Washington stood and walked to the window overlooking the hospital's main entrance. News vans were already arriving. Channel 2, Fox 5, CNN affiliate trucks positioning themselves for live broadcasts. Here's what's going to happen, he continued, his back still turned to them. Nurse Wells, you're terminated immediately. Security will escort you out. Your final paycheck will include 2 weeks' severance. More than you deserve, but less than you'll need. Patricia's sob was audible, but Dr. Washington continued without pause. Ms. Martinez, you're demoted to entry-level nursing. Your salary drops from $89,000 to $31,000 annually. You'll complete 200 hours of cultural competency training, perform 100 hours of community service, and write a public apology to be published in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Dr. Washington, please, Rebecca began. I'm not finished. His voice carried the weight of absolute authority. Both of you are permanently barred from supervisory positions at any metropolitan healthcare facility. Those are your choices. Accept them, or face civil rights lawsuits that will destroy your careers entirely. He turned back to face them, and they saw something in his expression that made resistance impossible. This wasn't just anger. It was the focused determination of someone who'd built an empire by refusing to accept injustice. You have 60 seconds to decide. Patricia's career flashed before her eyes. 15 years of pension contributions, health insurance for her family, the respect that came with her position, all of it evaporating because she couldn't see a pregnant black woman as deserving of basic dignity. "I accept," she whispered. Rebecca's calculation was different, but her conclusion identical. Fighting would mean lawyers, depositions, public testimony about her discrimination. The viral video would follow her forever. Better to take the demotion and hope for eventual redemption. "I accept," she said quietly. Dr. Washington nodded and touched his tablet. "Legal Department, execute termination paperwork for Patricia Wells, employee ID 4471. Process demotion for Rebecca Martinez, employee ID 3892. Both effective immediately." He looked up at them again. "Security will escort you out. Nurse Wells, you have 15 minutes to clean out your locker. Ms. Martinez, report to HR tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. for reassignment and training schedule." Patricia stood on unsteady legs. 15 years of employment ending in 15 minutes of humiliation. "Dr. Washington," she said, her voice barely audible. "I'm sorry." He studied her for a long moment. "No, Nurse Wells, you're not sorry. You're caught. There's a difference." The conference room door opened, and 2 security guards entered. Not Tony. He was busy ensuring Keisha received proper medical care, but professional escorts who'd handled this type of situation before. "Gentlemen, please assist these former employees with the exit process." As Patricia and Rebecca were led away, Dr. Washington returned to his tablet. The crisis management was just beginning. His phone buzzed with a text from Keisha. "Baby and I are fine. Dr. Martinez says everything looks perfect. Don't be too hard on them." He smiled for the first time in an hour. Even after experiencing discrimination, his wife's first instinct was compassion. It was one of the many reasons he'd fallen in love with her, and one of the many reasons he'd fight anyone who tried to dim her light. He typed back, "Already handled. Justice doesn't require cruelty, but it does require consequences." Another message appeared from his chief communications officer. "CNN wants a statement. Local news setting up for 6 p.m. broadcast. How do you want to handle media?" Dr. Washington looked out the window at the growing crowd of news trucks. This incident would define how metropolitan healthcare was perceived for years to come. More importantly, it would send a message to every other healthcare facility about the cost of discrimination. He typed his response. "Schedule press conference for 5 p.m. Main lobby. I'll address this personally." One more message came in, this one from an unexpected source. Zoe Jackson had somehow found his direct number. "Dr. Washington, this is Zoe who did the live stream. Thank you for protecting Mrs. Williams. You're a real one." The teenager's message made him laugh out loud. A real one. High praise from the generation that would inherit the world he was trying to build. He walked to the conference room's glass wall and looked down at the lobby. Normal operations had resumed, but he could see the subtle changes. Staff members were more attentive, more respectful. Word had spread quickly through the hospital's informal network. Discrimination had consequences now. Real consequences. Immediate consequences. His tablet chimed with a final notification. Metropolitan Healthcare stock had recovered and was now trading up 1.7%. Investors understood that ethical leadership was good business. Dr. Benjamin Washington had spent his career proving that doing the right thing and doing profitable things weren't mutually exclusive. Today's events would become a case study in both business schools and medical ethics courses. But more importantly, his wife and unborn daughter would never again be treated as less than human in any facility he controlled. And that was worth every dollar it cost. 500 St. Catherine's Hospital main lobby. The press conference podium stood where Patricia Wells had humiliated Keisha Williams 2 hours earlier. Benjamin Washington approached the microphones with the measured pace of someone who understood that words spoken here would echo across the healthcare industry. Cameras from 7 news stations tracked his movement. Zoe Jackson live-streamed from the side, her viewer count now exceeding 127,000. The story had transcended social media to become national news. "Good evening," Dr. Washington began, his voice carrying the authority that had built a billion-dollar empire. "I'm Dr. Benjamin Washington, CEO of Metropolitan Healthcare Empire. I'm here to address the discrimination incident that occurred in this lobby earlier today." He paused, letting the weight of the moment settle. "First, to my wife Keisha and every patient who witnessed today's events, you deserved better. You received an apology through actions, not just words." Behind him, a presentation screen displayed the new initiatives already implemented in the 2 hours since the incident. The Washington Protocol, effective immediately. Zero-tolerance discrimination policy. AI monitoring of patient interactions. Anonymous bias reporting system. Monthly dignity audits by third-party evaluators. Nurse Patricia Wells has been terminated. Charge nurse Rebecca Martinez has been demoted and will undergo extensive retraining. These weren't knee-jerk reactions. They were the inevitable consequences of choices that violated our core values. A reporter from Channel 2 raised her hand. "Dr. Washington, critics might say you're overreacting to protect your wife. How do you respond?" His answer was immediate and precise. "If protecting any patient from discrimination is overreacting, then I'll overreact every single time. This wasn't about my wife being my wife. This was about a pregnant woman being denied basic human dignity." The hospital's financial controller had run the numbers during the press conference prep. The reforms would cost $47 million across all metropolitan healthcare facilities. Dr. Washington had approved the expenditure without hesitation. "Effective tomorrow morning, every metropolitan healthcare employee will begin mandatory bias training. We're implementing AI systems that monitor patient interactions for discriminatory language. We're establishing a $15 million justice fund to support healthcare discrimination victims nationwide." Mrs. Dorothy Chen, who had witnessed the original incident, stood in the lobby crowd. She nodded approvingly as Dr. Washington outlined each reform. This was how institutional change happened, not through gradual adjustments, but through decisive leadership that made discrimination economically and professionally unsustainable. "Some will ask if these measures are extreme," Dr. Washington continued. "I would argue that what's extreme is tolerating behavior that treats human beings as less worthy of care based on their appearance." Zoe's live stream comments exploded with support. This is leadership. Every hospital should do this. Real change happening in real time. The presentation screen shifted to show measurable outcomes from the afternoon's events. Immediate results. Patricia Wells, terminated. Nursing license under review. Rebecca Martinez, demoted. $58,000 annual salary reduction. Tony Rodriguez, promoted to head of patient advocacy, hospital-wide staff meeting, scheduled for 6 a.m. tomorrow. Tony Rodriguez, the security officer who refused to remove my wife when he realized the request was discriminatory, has been promoted. Sometimes courage means knowing when not to follow orders. The decision to promote Tony had been immediate. Dr. Washington understood that protecting the right people sent as strong a message as punishing the wrong ones. A reporter from Fox 5 asked, "What's your message to other healthcare facilities facing similar situations?" "Simple," Dr. Washington replied. "Discrimination is expensive. It costs you talented employees, loyal patients, community trust, and legal settlements. But more importantly, it costs you your humanity." The presentation screen showed a final slide. Metropolitan Healthcare Empire Commitment. No patient will ever be judged by appearance. Healthcare is a human right, not a privilege. Dignity isn't negotiable. These aren't just corporate policies, Dr. Washington concluded. They're moral imperatives. Every patient who enters our facilities deserves to be treated with the same respect I'd want for my own family. As the press conference ended, reporters scattered to file their stories. The footage would lead evening newscasts across the country. Est Catherine's. Shame was trending nationally, but the narrative had shifted from outrage to accountability. In the VIP suite upstairs, Keisha watched the press conference on her tablet. Her prenatal examination had confirmed that both she and baby Hope were healthy. Dr. Martinez, the obstetrician, not the demoted charge nurse, had provided exceptional care, apologizing repeatedly for his colleague's behavior. She texted Ben, "Watching your press conference, I'm proud of you. Hope's kicking like she approves, too." His response came immediately. "Change starts here. Our daughter will never experience what you experienced today." By 6 p.m., the story had been picked up by CNN, MSNBC, and major newspapers nationwide. Medical schools began incorporating the incident into their ethics curricula. Other hospital chains announced similar bias prevention initiatives. Patricia Wells cleaned out her locker under security escort, her 15-year career reduced to a cardboard box of personal items. Rebecca Martinez completed her first day of bias training, facing 199 more hours of education about the dignity she'd failed to recognize. But the most important outcome wasn't punitive, it was preventive. The Washington Protocol would protect thousands of future patients from experiencing what Keisha had endured. Real change, implemented immediately, with consequences that would echo across the entire healthcare industry. 3 weeks later, baby Hope Washington entered the world at 6:47 a.m. in the same hospital where her mother had been discriminated against. The delivery room was filled with joy, respect, and the quiet dignity that should have been present from the beginning. Dr. Martinez, the obstetrician who'd provided exceptional care after the incident, smiled as he placed Hope in Keisha's arms. "She's perfect. Absolutely perfect." Keisha looked down at her daughter's face and whispered, "She'll never know a world where she's judged before she's heard." The story had become more than viral content. It had become a catalyst for systemic change across American healthcare. These are real-life stories that remind us why Black stories matter, why touching stories of injustice overcome can transform entire industries. Zoe Jackson's live stream had been viewed 4.7 million times across all platforms. Harvard Medical School invited her to speak about citizen journalism and accountability. She'd been accepted to 12 colleges with full scholarships from 3, including one funded by the Metropolitan Healthcare Foundation. "I just held up my phone," she said in interviews. "But sometimes that's all it takes to change everything." Patricia Wells had been forced to relocate to another state after her story became national news. Her nursing license was permanently revoked. She worked at a call center now, earning $28,000 annually. less than half her hospital salary. The consequences of her choices would follow her forever. Rebecca Martinez completed her bias training and community service. Her public apology, published in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, became required reading in nursing schools nationwide. She remained at entry level, a daily reminder that discrimination destroys careers. Tony Rodriguez had embraced his role as head of patient advocacy. Under his leadership, patient satisfaction scores increased 34% across all metropolitan healthcare facilities. He understood that real security meant protecting people's dignity, not enforcing prejudice. The Washington Protocol had been adopted by 847 hospitals nationwide. Healthcare discrimination complaints dropped 67% in participating facilities. Life stories like Keisha's were becoming rarer, not because they weren't happening, but because systems now existed to prevent them. Dr. Benjamin Washington received the NAACP Humanitarian Award for Healthcare Equity. During his acceptance speech, he said, "True power isn't about building wealth. It's about using that wealth to protect people who can't protect themselves." But the most meaningful recognition came from unexpected sources. Medical students wrote dissertations about the incident. Business schools taught it as a case study in ethical leadership. A documentary crew followed the family for a year, creating an HBO film about systemic change in healthcare. Keisha returned to Roosevelt Elementary as a different person. Her students noticed the change. She carried herself with quiet confidence, knowing that courage could emerge in moments when it mattered most. She established a program teaching children about dignity, respect, and standing up for others. Mrs. Williams, one of her third graders, asked, "Why did those people treat you mean?" "Because they forgot that every person deserves kindness," she replied. But the important thing is that we helped them remember. The real victory wasn't revenge or money. It was the knowledge that Hope Washington would grow up in a world slightly more just than the one her mother had inherited. These touching stories of quiet strength overcoming institutional prejudice prove that change is possible when ordinary people refuse to accept extraordinary injustice. Your voice matters. Have you witnessed discrimination in healthcare? Share your story in the comments below. Every experience helps create change. Subscribe to Black Voices Uncut for more real-life stories where justice overcomes prejudice and everyday heroes transform systems. Hit that notification bell because these Black stories of resilience and reform need to reach everyone. Share this video. Let the world know that dignity isn't negotiable, and that sometimes the most powerful weapon against injustice is simply refusing to be silent. Ma'am, I'm going to need you to step aside. This platinum card? Probably fake. We don't serve your type here. The words hung in the air like poison. Every head in First National Bank's flagship Manhattan branch turned. Phones emerged from pockets. A woman behind the counter started live streaming. Dr. Amara Williams stood perfectly still. Her tailored navy suit cost more than the teller's monthly salary. Her briefcase was titanium Rimowa. Her watch was a limited edition Patek Philippe, worth $180,000. But Brad Thompson, senior teller with 3 years of experience, saw only her skin color. "Sir, the card verified successfully," Amara said quietly. "I need to wire $2.3 million. The deal closes in 47 minutes. Brad smirked. "Sure it does, lady. Have you ever watched someone's entire world change in 45 minutes? These real-life stories of quiet power happen more than you think, because what happened next would shake this bank to its foundation." Maria Santos held her phone steady. The Instagram Live viewer count climbed. 127, 340, 891. Her thumb typed frantically. Karen Teller, VI's black businesswoman, at First National. "Ma'am, step aside," Brad repeated louder. His voice carried across the marble lobby. "Next customer, please." Amara Williams didn't move. At 45, she had built her reputation on calculated calm. CEO of Williams and Associates for 12 years. $4.2 billion in annual revenue. Government contracts spanning 3 continents. But right now, she was just another black woman being humiliated in public. "The transaction is legitimate," Amara said. Her voice remained steady, professional. "Here's my secondary identification." She placed her corporate credit card on the counter. Black Centurion. No preset spending limit, the kind banks beg clients to accept. Brad barely glanced at it. Branch manager Susan Chen emerged from her office. 52 years old, 20-year veteran. Chen had handled difficult customers before, but the growing crowd made her nervous. "Is there a problem here?" Chen's tone was diplomatic. "For now." "This woman claims she needs to wire millions," Brad said. "The amount doesn't match the, demographic." Maria's live stream exploded with comments. Did he just say demographic? This is straight racism. Sue them all. Chen studied Amara's identification. Her expression shifted, the diplomacy drained from her voice. "We have protocols for unusual transactions," Chen said coldly. "Especially ones involving such large sums." Mara's phone buzzed. Text from her assistant. "Sellers getting nervous. Deal falling apart. Need wire now." 43 minutes left. She opened her briefcase with deliberate precision. Inside, acquisition contracts, due diligence reports, financial projections. A first-class boarding pass was tucked in the side pocket. Private jet company, seat 1A. "These are the acquisition documents," Amara explained. "Williams and Associates is purchasing a tech startup. The wire transfer is for the closing." Chen flipped through the papers without reading them. Anyone can fake documents these days. The livestream viewer count hit 3,400. Comments flooded the screen faster than Maria could read them. Someone had already screen recorded the interaction. It was spreading. Security guard Mike Rodriguez approached. Ex-military, built like a linebacker. He'd been watching from across the lobby. "Everything okay here, Mrs. Chen?" "Just some confusion about account verification," Chen replied. Amara pulled out her phone. Not her regular iPhone. This was different. Custom leather case, embossed with AWCCO. She speed-dialed a number. "Patricia?" "It's Amara, code red. First National Bank, 47th Street. She spoke quietly, but Maria's phone caught every word. The live stream audience was riveted. 40 minutes until deadline. They're refusing to process a legitimate wire transfer. "Yes, that, Patricia. Full legal response." Amara ended the call and looked directly at Chen. "Mrs. Chen, I've banked with First National for 8 years. My company has significant accounts here. This treatment is unacceptable." Chen's jaw tightened. "Ma'am, if you don't like our service, you're free to bank elsewhere." The crowd murmured. Phones recorded from multiple angles. Maria's viewer count climbed past 5,000. A man in an expensive suit stepped forward. Stephen Rodriguez, civil rights attorney. He'd been waiting in line behind Maria. "Excuse me," Stephen said. "I couldn't help but overhear. Are you denying service based on racial profiling?" "This is none of your business," Chen snapped. "Actually, it is. I'm an attorney. This is a public accommodation, and I'm recording everything." Stephen held up his phone. The bank's security cameras captured it all from overhead. Multiple witnesses, multiple recording devices, multiple angles of evidence. Chen realized the situation was spiraling beyond her control. But pride and prejudice made her double down. Security protocols exist for a reason, she announced loudly. We can't process questionable transactions just because someone makes accusations. The crowd's energy shifted. Customers began taking sides. Older white patrons nodded approvingly at Chen's stance. Younger customers looked horrified. Maria's live stream comments were brutal. First National Bank is racist AF. This woman needs to sue. I'm closing my account tomorrow. Local news producer Sarah Kim had been depositing checks when the commotion started. Now she recorded with professional equipment. This was becoming a story. Amara checked her watch. 38 minutes remaining. Her second phone buzzed. CFO calling frantically. Opposing counsel threatening to walk. The acquisition was worth $200 million. 500 jobs hung in the balance. She answered professionally. David, slight delay at the bank. The wire will process shortly. But privately, she was calculating. 8 years of banking relationship. Hundreds of millions in deposits. Millions in fees generated. All about to become weapons in a war Chen had started but couldn't finish. Amara looked at Chen with the quiet intensity of someone who had built an empire from nothing. Mrs. Chen, let me ask you something. Do you know what Williams & Associates does? Chen shrugged dismissively. Some small consulting firm, I assume. The crowd fell silent. Even Maria stopped typing comments to listen. Amara smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. 47 floors above the street, Patricia Morrison hung up her phone and exploded into action. Chief Legal Officer of Williams & Associates, Harvard Law graduate, former federal prosecutor. When Amara Williams called Code Red, empires trembled. Emergency protocol, Patricia announced to her team. Discrimination case, First National Bank, full documentation package. Now, 6 lawyers mobilized instantly. Paralegal printed civil rights complaint templates, legal assistants pulled banking contracts, associates researched punitive damage precedents. In the bank lobby, Maria's live stream had become appointment viewing. 12,000 viewers watched in real time. The hashtag First National Racism started trending on Twitter. Regional manager Derek Walsh arrived, looking harried. Chen had called for backup when the situation escalated beyond her control. Walsh was old-school banking, 48 years old, 25 years with First National. He believed in hierarchy and order. What's the situation? Walsh asked Chen quietly. Customer making unreasonable demands, claims she needs to wire millions. Won't accept our security protocols. Walsh studied Amara from across the lobby. Expensive clothes, professional demeanor, but his unconscious bias aligned with his subordinate's judgment. Ma'am, I understand there's been some confusion, Walsh said, approaching with false friendliness. I'm Derek Walsh, regional manager. How can we resolve this? Process my wire transfer, Amara replied simply. $2.3 million. Legitimate business transaction. Walsh glanced at Brad Thompson, who shook his head dismissively. Our teller has concerns about the transaction size relative to the account history, Walsh explained. Stephen Rodriguez stepped closer. Are you seriously suggesting account history determines service quality? We follow federal banking regulations, Walsh replied stiffly. Show me the regulation that requires racial profiling, Stephen shot back. The exchange was heating up. Maria's phone captured every word. Comments flooded her screen. This lawyer is destroying them. Bank management is doubling down on racism. Sarah Kim, the news producer, recognized a breaking story. She called her assignment desk. I need a camera crew at First National Bank, 47th Street. Major discrimination incident unfolding. Viral potential. Amara's phone buzzed again. Another text from her assistant. Sellers threatening to walk. Deal dies in 32 minutes without wire transfer. The pressure was mounting from all sides. But Amara Williams hadn't built a billion-dollar company by cracking under pressure. She opened her briefcase again. This time she removed a thick folder marked Confidential, Banking Relationships. Mr. Walsh, perhaps this will clarify things. She handed him a single document. Walsh's eyes widened as he read the header. But Chen interrupted before he could process the information. I don't care what paperwork she has, Chen declared. Bank policy is bank policy. The crowd was growing restless. More customers had stopped their transactions to watch the drama unfold. Bank tellers whispered among themselves. Even security looked uncomfortable. Maria's live stream viewer count hit 15,000. Someone had shared it to TikTok, where it exploded to 45,000 views in 90 seconds. The viral momentum was building exponentially. First National racism was trending in 3 cities. Amara's executive assistant arrived, breathless from running 6 blocks. Jennifer Park, Harvard MBA, carried a leather portfolio containing the acquisition contract. Mrs. Williams, the sellers are getting nervous. Legal says we have 28 minutes before they invoke the deadline clause. This new information shifted the crowd's perception. Suddenly, this wasn't just about banking service. Real business was at stake. Jobs, investments, economic impact. Walsh finally focused on the document Amara had given him. His face went pale. Mrs. Chen, we need to talk privately, he said urgently. No, Amara interrupted. This conversation stays public. Just like your teller's discrimination. The power dynamic was shifting subtly. Walsh realized they were dealing with someone more sophisticated than he'd assumed. But pride prevented him from backing down completely. Ma'am, I apologize if our security protocols seem excessive, but in today's regulatory environment, we must be cautious with large transactions. Cautious with black customers, you mean? Stephen Rodriguez interjected. That's not what I said, Walsh protested. It's what you meant, Sarah Kim added, still recording. The bank's corporate phone system lit up. Headquarters was fielding complaint calls. Social media mentions were spiking 400%. The public relations nightmare was expanding beyond the building. Amara checked her Patek Philippe. 25 minutes remaining. She pulled out her CO emergency phone again. This call was different, more deliberate, more final. Board meeting. Emergency session. 1 hour. Yes, all 9 members. First National Bank discrimination incident. Potential contract termination. She spoke loudly enough for Walsh to hear every word. Shareholder notification required. $847 million relationship at risk. Walsh's mouth fell open. Did you say 847 million? Amara ended her call and faced him directly. Mr. Walsh, Williams and Associates has banked with First National for 8 years. We maintain significant deposits here. Your staff just refused to process a routine business transaction because of my race. Now wait just a minute, Walsh began. No, you wait, Amara cut him off. Her voice remained calm, but steel crept into her tone. Your teller questioned my identity. Your manager dismissed my documentation. You backed their judgment without investigating. The lobby fell silent except for the hum of Maria's live stream comments. 17,000 viewers hung on every word. This is textbook discrimination, and it's being broadcast live to thousands of people. Walsh looked around desperately. The crowd had grown to over 30 people. Every phone was recording. The bank's reputation was hemorrhaging in real time. His corporate training kicked in. Damage control mode. Dr. Williams, if I may call you that, let's step into my office and resolve this privately. No, Amara replied firmly. Your discrimination was public. The resolution will be public too. Jennifer Park leaned closer to her boss. 22 minutes, Ms. Williams. Legal says the deal structure collapses if we miss the deadline. The pressure was enormous. $200 million acquisition. 500 job creation commitment, industry partnerships. all hanging in the balance while bank employees debated whether a black woman deserved basic customer service. Amara made a calculated decision. Time for the nuclear option. She speed-dialed Patricia Morrison. Patricia, initiate full legal response. Discrimination documentation complete. Contract termination paperwork ready. Yes, all $847 million. She ended the call and looked directly into Maria's phone camera. Ladies and gentlemen, you're witnessing institutional racism in real time. This is how systemic discrimination operates in corporate America. The live stream comments exploded. Say it louder, make 'em pay. Justice for Dr. Williams. Walsh was panicking now. $847 million. If that number was accurate, they were facing the largest client relationship disaster in bank history. He grabbed his phone and called corporate headquarters. But it was too late. The elevator doors opened and Patricia Morrison stepped into the lobby, flanked by two associates. She carried a thick leather portfolio and wore the expression of someone about to destroy careers. The real power had arrived. Patricia Morrison moved through the lobby like a shark cutting through water. 23 years of legal warfare had taught her how to project authority without saying a word. Her associates flanked her with military precision, each carrying identical leather portfolios. The crowd sensed something significant was happening. Maria's live stream viewer count jumped to 22,000. Comments flooded the screen so fast they became a blur of outrage and anticipation. Ms. Williams, Patricia said calmly, I have the documentation you requested. She opened her portfolio and withdrew a thick folder marked Confidential, Client Relationship Analysis. First National Bank, Complete Account Portfolio, Williams & Associates Holdings. Walsh reached for the folder with trembling hands. The first page made his knees weak. Miami account, Williams & Associates. Portfolio value, $847 million. Annual fee generation, $23.4 million. The number hit the lobby like a thunderclap. Maria's phone captured Walsh's face draining of color. The live stream audience went wild. 800 million? She's their biggest client. This bank is finished. Chen stepped closer, her arrogance cracking. That can't be right. Patricia's smile was surgical. Page 2 shows transaction history, 18 months of banking activity, every deposit, every wire transfer, every service fee. She handed Walsh a second document. Page 3 shows Williams & Associates' economic impact on this branch specifically. 42% of quarterly revenue. The mathematics of power were undeniable. This wasn't just a customer service failure. This was corporate suicide. Steven Rodriguez live-streamed the revelation to his own followers. Y'all, this woman they've been discriminating against owns almost $1 billion with this bank. Sarah Kim's news crew arrived, professional cameras capturing everything. The story was evolving from viral social media incident to major news event. Walsh's phone rang. Corporate headquarters. He answered with shaking hands. Derek Walsh, yes sir, I'm aware of the social media situation. 847 million? Let me confirm. He looked at the documents again, hoping the numbers would somehow change. They didn't. Yes sir, that appears to be accurate. No sir, the wire transfer hasn't been processed. Discrimination, I wouldn't call it. The corporate conversation was brief and brutal. Walsh hung up looking like he'd been fired. He probably had been. Amara watched the chaos with professional detachment. This was business. Calculated, precise. Devastating. Mr. Walsh, she said quietly, in the past 18 months, Williams & Associates has generated $23.4 million in fees for First National Bank. Today, your staff refused to process a routine wire transfer because of my skin color. The crowd was riveted. Maria's viewer count hit 30,000. The live stream had become the most watched discrimination incident in banking history. "Ma'am, I'm sure there's been a misunderstanding," Walsh began desperately. "The misunderstanding is yours," Amara interrupted. "Patricia, please read Section 4.2 of our banking agreement." Patricia opened a different folder. Legal documents with First National's corporate seal. Her voice carried the authority of federal court. Section 4.2, Anti-Discrimination Clause. Any documented bias against Williams & Associates principals or employees triggers immediate contract termination and punitive damages. The silence was deafening. 30,000 people watched Derek Walsh realize his career was over. Furthermore, Patricia continued, Section 4.3 establishes liquidated damages of $5 million for each incident of discriminatory treatment. Chen's face went ashen. Brad Thompson, who'd started this entire disaster, looked ready to vomit. Rodriguez, the attorney, was live streaming his own legal analysis. "Y'all, she just hit them with a pre-negotiated discrimination clause. This bank agreed to pay $5 million if they treated her badly." The crowd erupted. Maria's comment section exploded with fire emojis and celebration. The power dynamic had completely flipped. Amara's assistant, Jennifer, checked her watch. 17 minutes, Ms. Williams. The sellers are threatening to walk. Time was still ticking. The acquisition deal hung in the balance. But now Amara held all the cards. "Mr. Walsh, I need that wire transfer processed immediately. $2.3 million. The deal closes in 16 minutes. Walsh nodded frantically. "Of course, Dr. Williams. Brad, process the transaction immediately." But Brad Thompson stood frozen. The magnitude of his mistake was crushing him. He'd just discriminated against the bank's most valuable client. On camera, in front of 30,000 people. I don't know how," Brad stammered. "Get someone who does," Patricia commanded. Her voice cut like a blade. Senior teller Maria Gonzalez pushed past Brad and began processing the wire transfer. Professional, efficient, colorblind. "Transaction initiating, Dr. Williams. Verification complete. Processing now." The crowd watched $30,000 worth of banking competence in action. What should have taken 2 minutes, 18 minutes ago, was finally happening. But Amara wasn't finished. The discrimination had been public. The consequences would be equally public. "Mr. Walsh, we need to discuss resolution beyond the wire transfer." Walsh nodded eagerly. "Absolutely, whatever you need. 3 non-negotiables," Amara said, her voice carrying the authority of corporate boardrooms. "First, public apology. Filmed, posted on all bank channels. Second, immediate termination of discriminatory staff. Third, mandatory bias training all branches with external oversight." The live stream audience was eating it up. Comments flew. "Make them pay. Justice served. CEO boss lady." Walsh's phone rang again. "Headquarters." He answered reluctantly. "Yes, sir." "She wants a public apology. Terminations?" "She's demanding, yes, sir. I understand the portfolio size. No, sir, we cannot afford to lose this relationship." He hung up and faced Amara with the expression of complete defeat. "Dr. Williams, First National Bank, accepts your terms." The crowd erupted in cheers. Maria's live stream became a celebration. 35,000 viewers witnessed institutional racism meeting corporate consequences. Patricia handed Walsh another document. "Contract termination papers. If these terms aren't met within 24 hours, Williams & Associates moves all accounts to Chase Manhattan." The threat was existential. $847 million walking out the door. $23 million in annual fees evaporating. Stock price implications. Board of Directors questions. Career-ending consequences. "We'll comply immediately," Walsh promised. The wire transfer completed successfully. Jennifer confirmed receipt with the acquisition team. The deal was back on track, with 12 minutes to spare. But the real victory was bigger than money. 35,000 people had watched systemic discrimination get dismantled in real time. They'd seen quiet power triumph over loud prejudice. Amara packed her briefcase with the same precision she'd opened it. Professional, dignified, victorious. "Mr. Walsh, I expect that public apology posted within 6 hours. The bias training program proposal on my desk within a week, and Mr. Thompson," she looked directly at Brad, "clean out your desk." The crowd parted as Amara walked toward the exit. Patricia and her legal team followed like a presidential entourage. Maria ended her live stream with 38,000 viewers, the most watched banking discrimination incident in social media history. But the real story was just beginning. The 32nd floor of First National Tower housed the bank's Executive Crisis Management Center. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Manhattan's financial district. Today, those windows felt like prison bars. Bank President Margaret Foster sat at the head of a conference table designed to intimidate. 20-year banking veteran, MBA from Wharton. She'd weathered financial crises, regulatory investigations, and hostile takeovers. But she'd never faced a discrimination scandal that had generated 60,000 social media views in 2 hours. "Situation report," Foster demanded. Corporate Communications Director James Chen, no relation to Susan, opened his laptop. The data was catastrophic. Hashtag First National Racism is trending in 12 cities. 47 news outlets have picked up the story. Our customer service lines are jammed with complaint calls. Legal counsel Rebecca Martinez added her analysis. The discrimination case is airtight. Multiple witnesses, video evidence from 6 angles, live social media documentation. "What's our exposure?" Foster asked. "Conservative estimate? $5 million in liquidated damages per their contract. Punitive damages could reach 8 figures. Legal fees, minimum $2 million. Chief Financial Officer David Park ran the numbers in real time. "If Williams and Associates terminates their relationship, we're looking at immediate loss of $847 million in deposits. $23.4 million annual fee revenue disappears." Foster rubbed her temples. In 2 hours, a senior teller's prejudice had created the bank's worst public relations nightmare in decades. "Where are we with Dr. Williams now?" "She's en route with her legal team," Martinez reported. "Full corporate crisis response requested." At 3:47 p.m., elevator doors opened to reveal Amara Williams flanked by Patricia Morrison and 3 associates. They moved with the confidence of people who held all the leverage. Foster stood professionally. "Dr. Williams, I'm Margaret Foster, bank president. I apologize for bringing you up here under these circumstances. The circumstances were created by your employees," Amara replied calmly. "I'm here to discuss resolution." They settled around the conference table, Foster's team on one side, Williams and Associates on the other. The dynamic was clear. Corporate damage control versus justified anger. Patricia opened her briefcase and withdrew a tablet. "Before we begin, Mrs. Foster, are you familiar with Williams and Associates?" Foster nodded. "I've reviewed your account portfolio. Substantial relationship." "Define substantial," Patricia requested. $847 million in deposits, $23.4 million annual fee generation. Correct. Now let me provide context you may not have. Patricia tapped her tablet. A presentation appeared on the conference room's wall display. Williams and Associates, founded 2013. Annual revenue $4.2 billion. Government contracts spanning 15 countries. Private sector clients include Fortune 500 companies. Foster's face grew pale as the scope became clear. Dr. Williams sits on 4 corporate boards. Advisory positions with 3 federal agencies. Harvard Business School guest lecturer. Her economic influence extends far beyond your bank. The room fell silent except for the hum of air conditioning and distant traffic. This morning's discrimination wasn't just against a customer, Patricia continued. It was against one of the most influential business leaders in America, caught on video, broadcast to 60,000 people. Foster cleared her throat. Dr. Williams, what would constitute appropriate resolution? Amara leaned forward. Her voice carried the authority of someone accustomed to boardroom negotiations. 3 non-negotiables. Public apology, filmed, posted on all bank channels within 6 hours. Immediate termination of discriminatory staff. Mandatory bias training, all branches. External oversight. And if we agree, Williams & Associates considers this resolved. We maintain our banking relationship. We might even expand it. Patricia slid contract termination papers across the table. If not, these take effect at midnight. All accounts transferred to Chase Manhattan. All relationships severed. Foster's CFO ran rapid calculations on his laptop. The numbers were devastating. Immediate loss, 847 million deposits. Annual impact, 23.4 million fees. Secondary effects, competitor advantage, regulatory scrutiny, reputation damage. Stock price implications? Foster asked. Conservative estimate, 3 to 5% decline. Market cap loss approximately $200 million. The mathematics of discrimination were stark. Prejudice was expensive. Foster's phone buzzed. Text message from the chairman of the board. Fix this. Now. Whatever it takes. The pressure was mounting from above. Below. All directions. Legal counsel Martinez interjected. Dr. Williams, regarding the terminations, we have employment law considerations. Due process requirements. Patricia smiled coldly. Ms. Martinez, you have video evidence of blatant discrimination. Due process doesn't protect employees who violate civil rights. She was right. The legal exposure was enormous. Foster made the calculation every corporate executive learns. Short-term pain versus long-term destruction. Dr. Williams, First National Bank accepts your terms. The announcement came with corporate finality. Decisions made. Consequences accepted. Mr. Thompson will be terminated immediately. Mrs. Chen suspended pending investigation. Mr. Walsh receives formal reprimand and mandatory retraining supervision. Amara nodded professionally. Acceptable. The public apology? Scripted by our communications team. Approved by yours. Posted within 6 hours on all bank channels. Bias training program? Third-party vendor. Monthly monitoring. Annual reporting to Williams & Associates board. Patricia documented every commitment. Timeline for implementation? 30 days maximum. Full compliance reporting quarterly. The corporate machinery was engaging. Policies would change. Procedures would be rewritten. Training would be mandated. All because a senior teller couldn't see past skin color. Foster's assistant entered with urgent updates. Ma'am, the story's been picked up by CNN, Fox Business, and Bloomberg. Social media mentions approaching 100,000. The situation was achieving national attention. First National Bank was becoming a case study in corporate discrimination. Dr. Williams, Foster said carefully, is there anything else we can do to demonstrate our commitment to change? Amara considered the question. Actually, yes. $50 million commitment to community development. Small business loans for minority entrepreneurs. Administered through Williams & Associates Foundation. The number was significant but manageable. Community investment tax benefits would offset much of the cost. And it would generate positive publicity to counter the discrimination narrative. Agreed, Foster said without hesitation. Patricia finalized the documentation. Termination agreements, policy changes, financial commitments, training protocols. The discrimination incident was becoming systemic transformation. "Hire, Amel. Final item," Amara said. "Quarterly diversity reporting. Public disclosure. Measurable progress on minority hiring and promotion." Foster nodded. Transparency commitment accepted. The meeting concluded with corporate handshakes and legal documentation. 2 hours of discrimination had generated months of institutional change. As they left the conference room, Patricia murmured to Amara, $67 million resolution, $5 million liquidated damages, $50 million community investment, $12 million estimated implementation costs. "Worth every penny," Amara replied, "if it prevents other people from experiencing what happened today." The elevator descended 32 floors, from corporate boardroom back to street level, from damage control back to real world. But the impact would ripple through the banking industry for years. At 5:23 p.m., security guard Mike Rodriguez escorted Brad Thompson to his desk. The walk of shame through First National's lobby drew stares from customers and colleagues alike. "Personal items only," Rodriguez instructed. "Corporate property stays here." Brad's hands shook as he packed family photos and coffee mug. 3 years of employment ending in disgrace. His LinkedIn profile would need creative explanation. Future job interviews would require careful narrative construction. Maria Santos was there, phone recording. Her afternoon live stream had become the most watched banking incident in social media history. 120,000 total viewers across platforms. "Former First National employee Brad Thompson," she narrated, "being terminated for discriminating against Dr. Amara Williams." The comments were brutal but justified. Corporate consequences for individual prejudice. Susan Chen faced different punishment. Suspended pending investigation. Mandatory bias training. Demotion to associate manager. Her 20-year career trajectory derailed by one afternoon of discrimination. Derek Walsh retained his position, but with permanent scarlet letter. Formal reprimand in his personnel file. Bias training supervision responsibilities. His promotion prospects evaporated. At 6:15 p.m., Margaret Foster appeared in a professionally produced video posted across all First National social media channels. "I'm Margaret Foster, president of First National Bank. Today we failed Dr. Amara Williams and our own values. Our employees treated a valued customer with discrimination that has no place in banking or society." The video had been scripted by corporate communications, approved by Williams and Associates' legal team. Every word calculated for maximum impact and minimum legal exposure. First National Bank sincerely apologizes to Dr. Williams. We are implementing immediate changes to ensure this never happens again. Foster outlined the systemic reforms: bias training for all employees, third-party monitoring, diversity reporting, community investment commitment. The video generated mixed reactions. Some praised corporate accountability, others criticized performative responses. But it demonstrated institutional consequences for discrimination. Maria's original live stream was shared 47,000 times. First National racism trended in 26 cities. The incident became a case study in viral social justice. 3 weeks later, the transformation was measurable. First National hired Diversity Solutions, Inc. for comprehensive bias training. All 1,500 employees would complete 40 hours of education over 6 months. The curriculum covered unconscious bias, cultural competency, customer service equity, role-playing exercises, video analysis, sensitivity workshops. Most importantly, anonymous reporting systems were implemented. Customers could report discrimination through mobile app, website, or phone hotline. Third-party monitoring ensured complaints received serious investigation. The Dignity Banking Initiative launched with $50 million in community development funding, small business loans for minority entrepreneurs, home ownership programs for underserved communities, scholarship funds for banking students from diverse backgrounds. Williams & Associates administered the programs through their existing foundation infrastructure. Amara personally reviewed applications and approved funding decisions. The first recipient was Marcus Johnson, African-American veteran seeking to open an automotive repair shop. Previous loan applications had been rejected by 3 banks. First National approved $200,000 in 36 hours. Dr. Williams turned my discrimination experience into opportunity for others, Marcus told local media. That's real leadership. The ripple effects extended beyond First National. 12 other major banks adopted similar bias training programs. The American Banking Association updated discrimination reporting guidelines. Harvard Business School requested permission to develop case study materials. The incident became required reading in corporate ethics courses. Dr. Williams was invited to speak at the National Banking Conference. Her presentation, Dignity in Financial Services, drew standing ovations from 1,500 industry leaders. Real power isn't about destruction, she told the audience. It's about construction. Today's discrimination becomes tomorrow's systemic change when courage meets strategy. 6 months after the incident, First National's transformation was statistically significant. Bias complaints dropped 87%. Employee satisfaction scores increased 34%. Among minority staff, customer acquisition from diverse communities increased 56%. The Dignity Banking Initiative attracted new business worth $120 million in deposits. Williams & Associates expanded their relationship to $1.2 billion across investment, commercial, and private banking services. Corporate stock price recovered completely within 90 days. The discrimination incident became corporate transformation story. Maria Santos leveraged her viral fame into social media consulting business. She specialized in documenting workplace discrimination and corporate accountability campaigns. Steven Rodriguez, the civil rights attorney, used the incident in diversity training seminars. This shows how individual prejudice becomes institutional liability, he explained to corporate audiences. The bank's new anonymous reporting app processed 43 complaints in its first 6 months. All received investigation. Policy violations resulted in corrective action. Serious discrimination led to termination. Cultural change was measurable. Employee surveys showed increased awareness of unconscious bias. Customer service training emphasized dignity and respect, regardless of race, gender, or economic status. First National's branch managers attended monthly diversity workshops. Regional executives received quarterly bias training updates. Corporate leadership reviewed discrimination prevention metrics at board meetings. The transformation wasn't perfect. Changing institutional culture required sustained effort beyond viral videos and corporate apologies. But progress was undeniable. Discrimination complaints decreased significantly. Minority employee promotion rates increased. Customer satisfaction scores improved across demographic categories. Dr. Williams received hundreds of messages from people sharing their own discrimination experiences. Many credited her example with inspiring them to speak up against unfair treatment. "Your courage gave me strength to report my supervisor's racist comments," wrote Jennifer Martinez, bank employee in Phoenix. The company took action because they saw what happened to First National. The incident proved that individual courage could drive systemic change. One person's refusal to accept discrimination had transformed an entire industry's approach to bias prevention. Amara Williams had turned humiliation into institutional reform, prejudice into policy change, discrimination into dignity for countless future customers. The acquisition deal that started the crisis closed successfully with 57 seconds to spare. Williams & Associates purchased the tech startup, created 500 jobs, and prioritized minority hiring at 60% of new positions. But the real victory was bigger than business. It was about human dignity prevailing over institutional prejudice. 18 months after that Tuesday afternoon at First National Bank, Dr. Amara Williams stood before 300 banking executives at the Federal Reserve's annual Diversity Conference. The auditorium was packed, standing room only. Her story had become legend in financial services circles. Discrimination isn't just morally wrong, she told the audience. It's economically stupid. First National learned that $67 million is an expensive lesson in human dignity. The audience laughed, but the message was serious. Corporate prejudice carried measurable costs. Behind her, slides showed the transformation data. First National's bias incidents, down 87%. Employee satisfaction, up 34%. Diverse customer acquisition, up 56%. When institutions choose dignity over discrimination, everyone wins, Amara continued. Customers, employees, shareholders, communities. Maria Santos watched the live stream from her consulting office. Her discrimination documentation had launched a successful social media business. She specialized in corporate accountability campaigns. Her Instagram following had grown to 200,000. The original First National video had been viewed 2.3 million times across all platforms. Dr. Williams changed my life, Maria told her own followers. One moment of courage created ripple effects we're still seeing today. The Federal Reserve had cited First National's case in new discrimination prevention guidelines. 12 major banks adopted similar bias training programs. The American Banking Association updated industry standards. Harvard Business School's case study was taught in 47 universities. Williams v. First National, Corporate Discrimination and Institutional Change, became required reading in business ethics courses. Steven Rodriguez had testified before Congress about banking discrimination. The incident he witnessed became evidence in federal hearings on financial services bias. Real change happens when individuals refuse to accept institutional prejudice, he told the Senate Banking Committee. First National's transformation continued accelerating. The Dignity Banking Initiative had approved 450 small business loans worth $87 million. Minority business creation increased 23% in their market areas. Employee diversity metrics improved dramatically. Minority hiring increased 42%. Promotion rates reached statistical parity across demographic groups. The anonymous reporting app processed 237 complaints in 18 months. Serious discrimination cases dropped to zero after comprehensive bias training implementation. Dr. Williams mentored 12 minority entrepreneurs through the banking program. Marcus Johnson's automotive shop employed 18 people and generated $1.2 million in annual revenue. She didn't just fight discrimination, Marcus explained to reporters. She turned it into opportunity for people like me. The acquisition deal that triggered the crisis had succeeded beyond expectations. Williams & Associates tech startup created 800 jobs, 68% filled by minority candidates. Corporate revenue reached $4.8 billion. Government contracts expanded to 4 continents. Dr. Williams was named to Forbes' list of most powerful women in business. But she measured success differently now. Power isn't about what you can destroy, she reflected in interviews. It's about what you choose to build. The banking industry's culture had shifted measurably. Discrimination training became standard practice. Anonymous reporting systems were implemented widely. Third-party monitoring increased accountability. These touching stories of transformation remind us that individual courage can drive systemic change. When people refuse to accept institutional prejudice, entire industries evolve. Dr. Williams' quiet power had dismantled discrimination through strategic action rather than destructive retaliation. Her response proved that dignity and data could overcome prejudice and policy. Real-life stories like this happen more often than we realize. Black stories of professional excellence challenging systemic bias. Life stories of people choosing construction over destruction. Have you witnessed discrimination in your workplace, your community, your daily life? Share your experience in the comments below. Your story might inspire someone else to choose courage over silence. Hit that subscribe button for more real-life stories of people who transformed injustice into institutional change. Share this video, because these touching stories of quiet power need to reach everyone fighting for dignity in their daily lives. Together, we can ensure that discrimination becomes too expensive for any institution to afford.